Hey y'all, my name is Yvette and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing the mid-year freakout tag. This tag was created by Chami and Earl Grey Books, and I believe that I am doing it a little bit later than people usually do. I usually see a lot of these go up towards the end of June, and I am filming this well into July. But that also means that I have a complete list of the books I finished in the first half of the year, which is around 103 books. So onto the questions. The first question is best book you've read so far, and I am physically incapable of choosing just one book, but I do have a solid top 3, and the first one is gonna be In the Dreamhouse by Carmen Machado. This is a memoir from a queer Latinx woman about her abusive relationship with another woman, and also just about abusive sapphic relationships in general, and this was a life-changing favorite of all time kind of book for me. The second book is The City We Became by N.K. Jeminsin, and this is an urban fantasy about the soul of New York City being birthed and manifesting as people, specifically like one person for each borough, and then they have to fight off an entity that does not want them to be born. And getting this was a little extra wild for me because I got it on release day directly from the publisher, which was also my birthday, and I didn't ask for it. I didn't know it was coming. I have no idea how they even got my address, so like a million thank yous to whoever made that happen. And the last one is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, and this is a book about a man whose job basically functions like a social worker for orphanages of magical children. He is sent to investigate whether the home of the literal Antichrist is adequate, and it ends up a found family situation, and also there is an MM relationship. The second question is the best sequel you've read so far, and that would definitely have to be A Mixture of Mischief by Atta Meriano. This is the third and final installment in the Love Sugar Magic series, which is one of my favorite all-time series. This is a Latinx middle grade fantasy series about a family of Mexican American brujas who own a bakery and cook magic into their food. There are 5 daughters, and the series follows the youngest one, Leo. She learns that her family has magic, and then she learns how to use her own magic, and it gets her in and out of trouble. This whole series was just everything I wanted. It was heartwarming and adorable, and has one of my favorite magic systems across the board. Question number 3 is new release you haven't read yet but want to, and there are so many that fits this question. I still want to read The Henna Wars, which is a sapphic YA contemporary about 2 girls with rival henna businesses. There is I'll Be the One, that has a main character who is a fat bisexual girl competing in a K-pop competition, and also The Black Flamingo, which is a novel in verse about a boy exploring drag, and there are not enough hours in the day to read all the books that I want to read. The first question is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and for me that is going to be The Care and Feeding of Waspish Widows Feminine Pursuits by Olivia Waite. This is the second book in the Feminine Pursuits series, and it is a follow-up to The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics, which was one of my favorite books from last year, one of my favorite books of all time. And this one is going to be an FF romance between a woman who owns a printing press and a beekeeper. This comes out at the end of July, and I've pre-ordered a copy, so I will have it in my hands soon. The fifth question is biggest disappointment, and that would be 5 Minutes by Cardinal. I think Paula said this best when she called it white Latinx nonsense. This is a Puerto Rican fantasy about a girl who goes to visit her family on the island, and she ends up taking it upon herself to solve a string of murders caused by the cuco. She faces opposition at nearly every turn because she is white, and she has this not like other girls complex, and just based off of the summary of the book, this should have been one that I absolutely loved, but I had a hard time getting through it. Number 6 is the biggest surprise, and I'm going with The New Year Boyfriend by Zoey Gong. This is a romance about a Chinese doctor working in Australia, and Chinese New Year is coming around and she's getting pressure from her family to go back and visit. However, she knows that if she goes, she's gonna end up getting married, and under these circumstances, that means that she's going to have to give up her career as a surgeon. She has seen this happen to women she knows, and she's not ready for that kind of life. So she decides to hire a local man to pose as her boyfriend and fend off her family, and fake dating and falling in love ensues. This book was surprising because from the cover and the premise, I assumed it would be a quirky, fun rom-com, and to my surprise, it was not. This book was so stressful to read. There were some very realistic, stress-inducing angst about very real-life things. Like the male main character, he has to make a choice between doing something very illegal and potentially life-ruining, or letting his mom die from cancer because he can't afford the treatment unless he does this very illegal thing. And I'm not saying that this book was bad. It was a good book, but for me, I got so anxious while I was reading it that I couldn't enjoy the reading experience. Had I known it was going to be that kind of book, I would have saved it to a time where we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. Question number 7 is favorite new author. And I don't think that I've read a new to me author that I've liked well enough to call a new favorite, but there is one that sticks out to me and one that I want to read more from, and that's Megan Giddings. She came out with her debut Lakewood back in March. This book is about a college student whose grandmother has just died, and now she's taking on the family finances, and she realizes that her family is deep in debt. And on top of that, she still has to pay for school, and she still has to pay for her mother's medical care, which she very clearly cannot afford. She's backed into a corner, and that is when an organization approaches her and offers her lots and lots of money to participate in a program where she will be basically medically experimented on. On paper, signing up for this program is a voluntary choice, but it's not really a choice when there is no other alternative for her and her family to survive. Basically, the main character is preyed upon because of her financial situation, and it is targeted and intentional and systematic and racist, and throughout the entire book you get this mounting sense of dread because you know that things are going to get worse and worse and worse. And the writing style that the author used is very interesting because it was very simple and matter of fact, but it was still able to make me feel a lot of things, and I think that takes a lot of skill to do. Number 8 is new fictional crush, and this would probably be the love interest from Leather and Lace by Rebel Carter, and this is an old Western FF novella by a Latinx author. The love interest owns a small ranch right outside of town, and the main character is pregnant out of wedlock and under the thumb of an abusive mother. She offers her marriage to get her out of the situation, and this is a purely selfless and genuinely altruistic action. Like, there is this mutual attraction between them from the beginning of the book, but all she wants to do is help this woman and her baby out of a bad situation, and she wants absolutely nothing in return. So I'm choosing her for this question because this book does have that trope of a white knight sweeping in and rescuing the damsel in distress, and usually I wouldn't be fazed by this trope. I mean, I think at worst I would be offended, and at best I'd be bored, but because there is an FF romance at the center of it, it changed everything. And I think that is because queer people deserve their cheesy Western romances too. This was a simple, predictable, super unrealistic romance with a picture perfect love interest, and I kind of loved it for that. Number 9 is newest favorite character, and that would be Midoriya from My Hero Academia. This is a manga about superheroes that takes place in a world where the majority of people have a superpower, which is called a quirk. And the main character Midoriya, he dreams of becoming a professional licensed superhero, but he was born quirkless. One day he catches the eye of the #1 hero in Japan, and that hero decides to pass along his power to Midoriya. I love Midoriya because he is the sweetest, most earnest little bean, and all he wants to do is help people, and he pushes everyone around him to do and be better, and I just love him with all of my heart. Number 10 is a book that made you cry, and I didn't want to repeat books in this tag, but because this is one of the very few books that made me cry, if not the only book, I'm gonna use this one, and it's In the Dreamhouse by Carmen Machado. The reasons why this book made me cry had a lot to do with the timing that I read this book, because I read this a little over a month after I ended a relationship, and this helped me to really understand what happened, because this was the first time I had read a book with an abusive relationship that was specifically sapphic, and I think that made all the difference because I was able to put my own experiences in the proper context to where I could identify them for what they were and process them with the seriousness that usually isn't afforded to sapphic relationships. And reading this book so soon after I left my partner, where all my emotions were raw in general, it really put things into perspective, perhaps in a way that I wasn't quite ready for yet, and it made things make sense, and I had to take a few crying breaks when I read this. Number 11 is a book that made you happy, and that would be The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is another one that I've already used previously in this tag, but it was one of my favorite books of the year for a reason. This is perhaps the most wholesome book that I have ever read. It is all about found family and finding a home in the people that you love, and the main character realizing that he is deserving of love and happiness, and reading this made my heart feel very, very full. Question number 12 is favorite book to film adaptation you saw this year, and I haven't seen a lot of new adaptations that are like new to 2020, but there is My Hero Academia, which I already mentioned, so very much that for this question. And I've also been making my way through Elementary, which is a Sherlock Holmes adaptation where John Watson is now Joan Watson and played by Lucy Liu. And really, with how many times this show puts Lucy Liu in a suit, it is a gift. In my very gay opinion, this is the superior Sherlock adaptation. Also, I've been catching up on Diablero, which is a Netflix original show about demon hunters in Mexico City, and that is one I would definitely recommend if you were a fan of Supernatural back in the day. Question number 13 is favorite video you've done so far this year, and I've been really terrible at uploading this year, so I don't have a ton to choose from, but I do really like a video that I recently uploaded about getting into horror books. Half of that video was a discussion where I talked about how and why I'm getting into horror while I put on my makeup, and I did have like a list of things I wanted to make sure to hit on, but for the most part I am really bad at talking off the fly, and less so when I'm multitasking, but I think that video went okay. Question number 14 is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received, and I don't really have an answer for this question. The closest I got to was this issue of the Nightmare magazine. This is the Women Destroy Horror special issue, and it's a collection of like horror short stories, poetry, art, nonfiction pieces, and author spotlights from women, and I just really like this body horror cover. And finally, the last question, number 15, is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I don't feel like there's any books that I need to read that I'm putting a big pressure on myself to read, but if I can, I do want to try to get to the books that I have pre-ordered this year. So to give a rundown of those books, the first one is The Care and Feeding of Waspish Widows, Feminine Pursuits by Olivia Waite, which I have already talked about. And then we have Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, and that is a Latinx YA fantasy about a trans boy who is a brujo, and he accidentally summons the spirit of the school bad boy. I also have Things Hoped For by Seneca Williams, and that is an FF romance novella about a woman who has just moved to Houston for a fresh start and her relationship with an up-and-coming underground musician. If that premise wasn't enough for me, the author is from Houston, the story takes place in Houston, and I live in Houston, so I'm really excited about that. Hi Lexi. Hello baby. Hi. Hi. Oh yes, I love you. I love you. Okay, don't knock things over, baby. Oh, are you okay? Good girl. Oh, don't bite your sister. Do not bite your sister. And then another one is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. And all I know about this one is that it is a thriller about gentrification, and it's from a queer black romance author that I absolutely love. And then He's Come Undone, a romance anthology, which is basically what it says. It's an anthology about stories where the big strong love interest comes undone for the main character. I got this one because it has stories from two authors I really like, Kat Sebastian and Adriana Herrera, and I'm actually reading it right now and it's pretty good so far. And then I got Femme Like Her by Fiona Zed, and this is another FF romance. I know absolutely nothing about it, not even the premise. I saw someone on Twitter boosting a pre-order link, so I kind of just impulsively bought it, because as I seek out and read more FF romance, I am noticing that it is noticeably harder to find FF romances by and about people of color than it is to find FF romances by white authors. So when I saw this, I had to snatch it up. And the last book that I have pre-ordered this year but I haven't read yet is The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen, and this is a graphic novel about a young Vietnamese boy who's trying to come out to his parents. I am especially excited for this book because I am somewhat familiar with the work of this writer slash artist. I recently got into tarot cards, and the deck that I use is the one that they put out. The art in this deck is very queer and absolutely gorgeous, and I'm sure that this graphic novel will be as well. So that is going to be it for the mid-year freakout tag. I am not going to tag anyone because this isn't the kind of video that usually tag people in, and also this is going up super late. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.